the type to beat up the bad guy when things turn ugly.
My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is August 25th, 2025. It is 11:45 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top U.S. news highlights from the past 24 hours. Alina Habba appointment ruled unlawful. A federal judge invalidated Alina Habba's appointment as acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, ruling it exceeded the 120-day interim limit without Senate confirmation. Actions taken during her tenure, including indictments, may now face legal challenges. National Guard troops in D.C. are now armed. National Guard personnel deployed in Washington, D.C. under the crime emergency are now authorized to carry weapons, either M17 pistols or M4 rifles, marking a notable escalation in domestic troop deployment and raising civil liberties concerns. Possible deployment to Chicago looms. President Trump signaled that the federal military deployment to Chicago could occur within 24 hours, citing crime. Preliminary Pentagon planning is underway, though no formal request has been made by Illinois officials. Close proximity to homes causes alarm as schools reopened in D.C. The presence of armed National Guard troops sparked fear among parents. City officials lambasted the militarized environment, particularly around educational institutions. Policy shifts and institutional power. Cashless bail policies targeted. President Trump signed executive orders to eliminate cashless bail practices in D.C. Suspects will now face federal charges and custody by passing local policies. Additionally, jurisdictions using cashless bail may lose federal funding. Federal control over D.C. police challenged the move to federalize the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. under the Home Rule Act is the subject of legal disputes. Critics argue the takeover is unconstitutional and exceeds presidential authority. U.S. consumers with high credit scores begin to fall behind. Even individuals in the prime and super prime categories are showing a rising delinquency. Vantage Score reports a sharp 109 increase year over year in 90-day late payments among super prime borrowers and a 47% rise among those with prime credit. Notably, late-stage delinquencies are also climbing in auto loans and mortgages, signaling stress even among financially secure households. Lawmakers and unions push back on automated railroad inspections. The railroad industry's plan to reduce human-conducted track safety inspections by 75% through automated track geometry measurement systems, TGMS, has sparked strong opposition. Labor unions and Democratic lawmakers argue that TGMS cannot detect many track defects that human inspectors can, potentially increasing derailment risks, especially in the wake of high-profile train accidents. Vaccine skeptic appointed to CDC COVID panel. Retsev Levy, who has publicly questioned the safety of mRNA COVID-19 vaccines, has been named the head of the CDC's new COVID-19 immunization task force. His appointment comes amid broader agency reforms. Chinese trade envoy to visit Washington. Senior Chinese trade negotiator Li Chenggang will travel to Washington this week for informal talks with U.S. officials. This visit follows a 90-day extension of the U.S.-China tariff truce, maintaining current tariffs of 30% on Chinese goods and 10% on U.S. goods, and will be the first by a top Chinese trade official to the U.S. since 2023. President Trump to welcome 600,000 Chinese students. President Trump announced plans to significantly increase the number of Chinese students admitted to U.S. universities up to 600,000, more than doubling the current levels. This move signals a strategic shift amid ongoing trade discussions with China. Threatened 200% tariff on rare earth magnets. Trump asserted the U.S. holds incredible cards to challenge China economically and suggested possibly imposing a 200% tariff on rare earth magnets, vital in technology and defense sectors. Executive actions are underway to bolster American control over these strategic resources. U.S. backs Ukraine, but details remain uncertain. President Trump reaffirmed U.S. support for Ukraine's security, though no specific commitments have been finalized. He also noted that during his summit with Putin, they discussed nuclear disarmament contingent on ending the Ukraine conflict. Super Garuda Shield military exercises with allies, the U.S. alongside Indonesia, Japan, Australia, the U.K., South Korea, and others, launched the annual Super Garuda Shield military drills in Indonesia. The exercises, emphasizing deterrence and regional cohesion, respond to regional tensions, particularly around Chinese influence. Summit with South Korea features tense yet cordial exchanges. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung met with President Trump amid earlier public friction, including Trump questioning Lee's legitimacy. Despite the awkward start, didn't he just do that with the leader of Venezuela? So Trump is questioning the legitimacy of the leader of Venezuela as well as the leader of South Korea. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing this in multiple nations? Why is he doing this with nations that there has been literally no issues with for a while now? Why is this happening? Anyway, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung met with President Trump amid earlier public friction, including Trump questioning Lee's legitimacy. Despite the awkward start, both reaffirmed cooperation on trade and North Korea policy, and Trump hinted at reciprocal visits. Can you not question the legitimacy of other nations' leaders? Can you stay the fuck out of that shit? Why are you making these kinds of comments? I find that to be very inappropriate, unprofessional, and not good for our public security, like our national security. What is the point in doing that? Why is our president going around challenging other leaders, saying they're illegitimate, of other nations, multiple foreign nations that we're supposedly allies with? Why is he doing that? Ongoing legal actions against the Trump administration. Haba ruling highlights constraints. The invalidation of Haba's appointment underscores the judicial limits on bypassing Senate confirmation and affirms the importance of following constitutional appointments procedures. Today, the stock markets closed with the SPDR S&P 500 ETF SPY closed at $642.47, down approximately 43%. SPDR Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF DIA closed at $453.07, down about 0.78%. Invesco QQQ Trust QQQ closed at $570.32, down roughly 0.28%. For those of you who are visual people, this is what the stock market close looked like today. This is the S&P 500. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And this is Invesco QQQ. What's behind today's market moves? Markets dipped today after a strong rally week, fueled by renewed hopes of a Federal Reserve rate cut. This pullback reflects investors balancing optimism with caution as they await further signals from economic data and central bank communication. Here are the latest U.S. trade and economic highlights from the past 24 hours. Chinese trade envoy heads to Washington. Senior Chinese negotiator Li Changgang will visit Washington this week for informal trade talks. The visit follows a recent 90-day extension of the U.S.-China tariff truce, keeping existing tariffs in place while both sides explore further dialogue. Trump threatens more tariffs over digital taxes. President Trump warned countries with digital tax regimes that their goods could face additional U.S. tariffs. Can you stop with the tariffs? I would like to be able to afford basic food items. This is how I feel about the news right now. Could you just stop? This marks another escalation in trade pressure targeting nations supportive of digital service taxes. China's copper firm gains edge through U.S. factory. Wallacent, a Chinese copper flat wire maker, is building a $100 million factory in Grand Prairie, Texas. Hell, in my opinion, aiming to produce 3,000 metric tons annually by 2028. This U.S.-based manufacturing allows the company to avoid a 50% tariff on Chinese imports and serve U.S. automakers like Stellantis. I just find it questionable considering that they're gunning for Texas when it appears that there's a possible coup taking place in the United States right now, and Texas is like freaking Trump's little minion lives there, dude. What's his name? Fucking Hot Wheels. So the Chinese are cutting deals with Hot Wheels. $550 billion Japanese investment to boost U.S. industry. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick announced plans to finalize a $550 billion Japanese investment package in the U.S. targeting manufacturing in semiconductors, rare earths, and antibiotics. Japanese trade envoy Ryoshi Akazawa will travel to Washington to finalize terms, including profit sharing and continued tariff reductions. Let us see this in writing. If they're doing these things, they can say that they didn't do this and do that, but they need to put this shit in writing, and I'm not seeing this shit in writing. Why don't you show us these deals that you're making, you know? Like, why are these people meeting up with him, and are they getting something out of him, and we're getting nothing in return when he is making these claims, and there's nothing in writing showing that these deals have been made and that there's any form of agreement? How do businesses in the United States plan around these drastic economic changes, the changes to the economy, when there's nothing in writing to read about what we can expect moving forward? And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the S&P 500 or Dow Jones may be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. Here's the upcoming hazardous weather outlook for the next few days. West, southwest, and plains, cool and dry. Exceptional relief from the prior heat. No hazards this week through midweek. Midwest, central U.S., marginal rain on Monday, otherwise mild and uneventful. Southeast and Gulf Coast and Mid-Atlantic, spotty rain. Watch for flooding risks later in the week. East Coast and beach areas, no coastal threats anticipated through midweek. Pacific Northwest and Northern Rockies, prepare for extreme heat and gusty winds. Threatening wildfire conditions continue later in the week. Storm-prone zones, plains and southwest. Slight chance of heavy rainfall, prompting flooding. Best to monitor for updates if you are in a risk area. Here are the top international news highlights from the past 24 hours. Biden advisor defends AUKUS, a UK-US submarine project. A top advisor to the Biden administration reaffirms support for the AUKUS initiative, providing Australia with nuclear-powered submarines while acknowledging and addressing rising domestic and regional concerns about nuclear proliferation. Trump removes Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. President Trump took the unprecedented step of firing Lisa Cook, the first African-American woman to serve in the Federal Reserve Board. The dismissal stems from allegations of mortgage borrowing irregularities. Please explain. There's an article by Reuters here. Yeah, it just says claims of mortgage borrowing impropriety is not very clear, so he's making unwarranted assaults on a person's character that I feel insinuate fraud when there's no legal basis, though they're just baseless claims. And I personally feel that kind of behavior, I mean, first of all, that's harmful to the person who lost their job. But I also feel it is an act of attempting to undermine public trust on an unwarranted basis of making up stories about people and then doing fucked up shit to them, which he has been doing for a while now. Military presence looms over Chicago. Trump said that U.S. military forces might be dispatched to Chicago on less than 24 hours' notice to address crime, following the federalization of D.C. police and armed National Guard deployment there. More U.S. investments in domestic companies. Trump expressed desire to expand government support for U.S. corporations, similar to recent investments in Intel, raising concerns within business community over potential government involvement in strategic corporate decisions. Trump eyes summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Oh, great. He's gonna go meet up with this motherfucker. President Trump announced his intention to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un before year end. He also highlighted ongoing discussions with South Korea about further trade cooperation. So is North Korea utilizing Trump to bully South Korea? Is that what's going on? And like Putin is supervising or what? I'm just expressing my opinion. Like, what's happening here? I'm just wondering, that's all. So this has been the last 24 hours in the news. It is a little bit past midnight. Now it's technically the 26th, but I'm going to put the 25th on this because it technically started a video on the 25th. I'm going to go, this is the news for the day.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup. And everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey, guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, cause MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA, abolish MAGA, fuck you MAGA.